Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And Blizzard just released their second major round of class tuning adjustments for Midnight Season 1. I will have a link to that video at the end of this one if you want to see the specific and exact details of that. But the purpose of today's video is to review all of the specializations, apply all of those changes to them, and anticipate where they might be landing on Tuesday in terms of performance. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. All right, let's get started. Here's a lot of specs. Affliction Warlock in PvP. They buffed a lot of your dots. I think the buff to Unstable Affliction is the most noticeable one. They're basically buffing its damage by 25%, making it last longer, which means that you have more time to stack it up on a target. However, it can still be dispelled pretty easily. They buffed the dispel protection of it a little bit on the last one, but I was spam dispelling against the one Affliction Warlock that I saw. They did buff Shadow Bolt as well. Again, Shadow Bolt's doing like 0 damage, so 100% buff might not really put it into play. I think you're probably still going to be playing Hellcaller on Affliction when it comes to Tuesday. I definitely think it has some possibility, but I am a bit more conservative with my anticipation for it, mostly because I still expect it to be a very bursty based meta, and Affliction isn't the most bursty, especially if Shadow Bolt isn't doing relevant damage even with the buff that they've applied. So my conservative prediction for Affliction is B. I could be wrong here. I think at most, though, it could be A, and then at worst, it would probably be C. So I'm just kind of shooting in the middle as far as predictions here. Maybe the dot damage is overwhelming. Maybe UA is crazy, and then it feels like A tier. But I am worried about it in kind of this burst meta and the strength of a lot of these melee DPS, kind of just running it over at the moment. It's definitely getting a lot better in Battlegrounds, though, where you're going to have more free reign to multi-dot and things like that. But in Arena, I think B is probably a safer spot for it. Arcane did get buffed pretty monstrously on its overall damage as well as its Arcane Missile damage. So hopefully the Arcane Missile build is going to be coming back for it. However, I do think Frost and Fire are just significantly better. I think Fire is the most easy to get damage off because it's just all instant cast. It's very rapid and it's just out of nowhere. Whereas Frost, you have to channel it. You can kind of outplay it. And then Arcane, it's very obvious to see it coming with Arcane Surge, and it's all channeled, and if you're kicked on it, you can't do anything. So I think Arcane still has some pretty big limitations in that regard, but I think its damage is probably still going to be high enough that it will feel like an A tier specialization at least. Again, somewhere between A and B is where I would expect this. I think it's still going to do really well into the melee. Unfortunately, some of the melee that you do really well into, I'm not sure if are looking so hot. Speaking of one of those being the Arms Warrior, you didn't get any changes on this one. They seem to think that you were fine after that most recent round of buffs, and I feel like it may not have actually been enough. I think particularly your defense and your mobility is still lacking a lot. Like you would need probably like maybe 10 to 20% more damage to compensate for how squishy you seemingly are. I think that its defense is really shaky, and then getting uptime is still very difficult. And with the buffs to Arcane, that's a nerf to Warrior. Buffs to Ellie Shaman, that's a nerf to Warrior. No nerfs to Hunters, that's a nerf to Warrior. So I think the specs that counter you, they're either staying the same or getting better, and then you're just really squishy. So honestly, you guys, I'm putting you back on D tier as far as my anticipation for this specialization. I think that it's falling off pretty hard. Assassination, they threw you a little bone with 4% more damage. I really don't think that's going to matter. You still just run out of steam, you run out of vanishes, you run out of energy into the late game. You can't keep up with the same type of momentum that Subtlety can. And they nerfed your burst in the build before this one. So I think it's probably like at best, you're going to probably be sitting somewhere along here in B tier, maybe C tier again, like C or B for Assassination. I think you're also easier to take out than Subtlety because you don't have access to as many Shadow Dances. Well, you don't have Shadow Dance. You don't have access to the healing on Shadow Dance, and you don't have as many vanishes. So you lose out on a lot of healing that Subtlety has as well. Augmentation Evoker, again, I don't expect really huge things from this. I think it's just its personal damage is kind of low, and it's just not really that awesome. Blood DK, though, after the buffs that came through, could be pretty gnarly. I'm thinking mostly Battlegrounds in this situation or World PvP, but I definitely think it could be pretty gnarly. And I just played Guardian Druid recently, and this might come as a surprise to you guys, but this thing is not dead. This thing is not dead. The bear is not dead. The bear is still kicking after trying it yesterday. It is very much so still very powerful. I found a new build. It was a Mythic Plus build And I tried it out in PvP and I was like, oh, this is a lot of damage. And I think it's particularly the change that they made when you incarn in your Apex talent. The crit modifier on your Maul means you can get like Mauls that are hitting over 100,000. And then you play the red Moonfire, which gives you a huge amount of damage. And you can run in with Feral Frenzy and Cat, and you get this big one-shot and mow people over, and you're still unkillable. And its damage output is still pretty decently high. So like, I think Guardian is very scary. Beast Mastery Hunter, you guys are probably still just riding in a safe spot here around A tier. You guys are kind of like the dark horse where if MM does eventually catch nerfs, which I feel like there's no way you're going to keep getting away with the one-shots, that you could rise to the top. But for right now, I think A tier is a safer position for you. Brewmaster Monk, I haven't noticed too many of them in PvP. I think that like it's probably acceptable. That's why I'm putting it on B tier, but I just haven't seen a lot of them. Feral Druid, you guys are getting a lot better. You're getting 9% damage buff. I think that you're still more complicated to play than a lot of other melees, so it feels like you're kind of sweating for more. You're sweating more work for less effort, or more work for less results. That's the word that I was looking for. But I think Feral could be creeping up. I definitely think it could be creeping up. I think A+ is probably a more fair position for it. Balanced Druid is really good. I'm going to put it on A+ though, as opposed to S tier. I think that defense is a little bit shaky, especially with Feral getting stronger. DK still looking solid. I think that you can kind of get run over in some situations is the only reason. I think if you're a highly skilled player, it'll feel like A+. If you're like a noob player, maybe mediocre player, it might feel a little bit lower. It might feel closer to B tier. So it depends on your level of mastery as far as your performance with this, and that goes with Affliction as well as Arcane. These specs that require a little bit more nuance, whether it's survivability or just getting your effective damage out. Devour Demon Hunter could be very scary. They're buffing a lot of your damage. I do actually think you could be terrifying. I don't know if they're doing this because they want to see it in the tournaments. They just announced AWC and the MDI. Or it's because it's really underperforming in PvE and they're kind of okay with it being a little bit more crazy, because this is the first time a new spec has kind of just been so-so. It's not like insane. It's not terrible, but it's kind of so-so. But I think it could. The damage modifiers they're applying to this guy is very scary. Demonology Warlock, I think is like probably also still A+ for PvP, even with the little minor nerf that it's getting. It just has so much CC. The CC is really carrying its viability. The stun, the coil, the howl on a low cooldown, the double gate. You just have a lot of lockdown. So a little tiny bit more damage loss. I don't think it's going to be a hugely noticeable. Destruction Warlock, I'm going to say is probably A tier. I think Demo is a little bit better than it, just based on durability. I think that you might struggle with some of the melee DPS, especially with DPS shamans and resto shamans getting buffs. If those start creeping in, those are really annoying for you. The only saving grace for you is that Arms Warrior, I think, is going to disappear, go extinct with the dodo birds. But I do think it is a good pick right now. Again, if this is Battlegrounds, I'm trying to consider like the whole thing with this list, like arenas and battlegrounds. Battlegrounds, I put it way higher than this, but for arenas, I think like around this place is a better spot. Devastation Evoker, somehow you guys didn't get nerfs. They like nerfed Disintegrate and then buffed your overall damage. So like, to me, I feel like Dev Evoker is still a really good pick. It just does so much damage, just absolutely mows people down for how easy it is to play. Discipline Priest, again, kind of a slap on the wrist. I think you guys are probably still going to be a really good healer. I'm going to put you onto A+ for now. Just overall damage output is really high. So I think it's a great healer to play at the moment. Ellie Shaman, this one, you guys got massive buffs. They offset it a little bit, but I feel like Ascendance is going to be crazy. I think Ascendance is going to be the scariest cooldown in the game. I don't know if the buffs are enough for your damage outside of Ascendance. I was honestly surprised they didn't nerf Ascendance and then buff the damage outside of it, because I really think Ascendance is going to be pretty spooky. I think you guys are probably jumping up at least to A+, kind of similar to Devourer. I'm kind of expecting one-shot central from these guys on Tuesday. And you're already pretty decently tanky with the buffs they've applied to you. They buffed the crap out of your what's it called when you get low health and you auto heal? I can't remember what it's called right now. Your auto proc heals for a lot. So you're decently tanky, mobile, and I think the damage buff is definitely going to be noticeable in your Ascendance window for sure. Enhancement Shaman, I think, is probably still A+, even with the changes. I think that you might flip from Totemic to Stormbringer. With what they've done to it, a little bit lost in the damage modifiers. Honestly surprised to see Enhance get nerfs before Rogue, but I think it's probably still going to be hanging out pretty high. Frost DK, I could see creeping up here into A tier. I don't think it'll be better than Unholy, but I definitely think it's starting to rise. Fire Mage still going to be S tier. Combustion, Giga one shot, probably going to be. Maybe Ellie will be the only thing that can compete with your one shot, honestly. And its synergy with Rogue is just really high right now. Frost Mage, I do expect it still to be really good. I think it's a little less than Fire just because Ray of Frost is a bit easier to disrupt. However, it is tankier. Frost Mage is the tankiest spec. So if you're fighting a lot of Hunters, Frost will feel better. If you're avoiding the Hunters, then I think Fire will take over. So there's a little bit of a situational benefit to either of those. Fury Warrior, I think much like Frost DK, is like at least on A tier. I think it still gets kited. It can still be kind of squishy. That's the main reason I'm not putting it on A+. But its damage output feels a lot more significant relative to its tankiness compared to arms at the moment. Havoc Demon Hunter is another one I think I underrated, but I don't think it's like super. I think I underrated before, but I think the best I could still give it is A tier. Rain from Above is doing a lot of damage, but I think you get ran over by like these Fire Mage, Marksman Hunter, Subtly Rogue, Enhanced one-shots, and that can just absolutely maul you. If you manage to navigate expertly around those, then maybe you can still have a decent time with it. I think like DK, Demon Hunter is a pretty good comp, but the Rogue combos are going to be really tough for you. Holy Priest, I think it's probably just sitting in a comfortable position at A tier. It's still the best healer to pick up if you're a new player. It's just very straightforward. Instant big burst heals. You can get a lot out of it. Holy Paladin, this is one where I think it might be falling a bit. I think the mana nerfs are the biggest thing for it, and we'll have to wait and see because it was starting to creep up into the #1 spot for popularity, but I swear once people figure out that you can just attack the Holy Paladin, it's going to start getting tough for you. And I think if you also, it could start getting tough for you. They also drop the amount of judgment procs that you get, so you're going to be losing out on a lot of burst damage. So I'm actually dropping Holy Paladin quite a bit based on the changes that they've made for it. Not completely off, but maybe it will be. So for now, landing somewhere in around here. Marksman Hunter, really good. Only problem for you is Death Knights. But aside from that, I think that you just do so much damage in the true shot volley window. It's just unbelievable one shot basically, and then you've got overwhelming pressure off the back of that basically for the rest of the match. Mistweaver Monk, I still think is going to be the best healer. A little bit of slap of the wrist on the overall healing, but I think that it's still got a really good kit. I think the in-cap sleep is also really strong at the moment. I think it's a really good one still. Outlaw Rogue, you guys did get a little bit of a buff. You guys are probably at least creeping up into A tier, but I think Subtlety will still be outshining you. It's just the amount of control that you get, the frequency and the lethality of it that I think is putting it above you. But you are starting to get up there with the buffs they've been giving you. Preservation Evoker probably falling off a bit because he actually got nerfed because of Raid, which is a bit surprising. I think it's like you're probably at least A tier still, but maybe starting to fall a bit with that 5% loss. Prot Warrior, I don't really see a lot, but I would imagine that it's probably riding somewhere in the mid. I think that Paladin is also a really good pick. It still just focuses as like a second healer with a big one shot. Resto Druid is a healer that could be doing a lot better. I think that Resto Druid's probably coming up onto A tier at least. I think Priest and Monk will be the forerunners just because of their damage output and just their overall throughput really. And Druid will likely not be able to compete in that regard, but it's going to be hopefully not completely useless like it was starting to feel like. And honestly, it's tough to counterweight the healers against each other after the changes they've made to Resto. Ret Paladin, I think, is still going to be riding pretty high here on S tier. Just really good overall kit, lots of longevity, big burst. Can't really go wrong. It does really well into rogues, which are really popular at the moment. Restoration Shaman, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Resto Shaman will still be the weakest healer because you still have to cast the most of any healer. And you're the most susceptible to interrupts, but you are the strongest healer into like wizards. I kind of want to put you as B tier. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like Shaman in a burst meta doesn't have a lot of good cooldowns to be reactionary to it. I just see it. I just see like meta wise, it'll feel like the weakest healer, but you can feel good in some lobbies. But I think B tier is probably where I would situate you at the moment. Shadow Priest, I think is still really good, but it's a bit slow at this item level. Again, it's going to be interesting because like tournaments were played at max item level. And I think Shadow Priest probably gets a lot better up there. But at lower item level, I think it could feel a little bit weaker. I think you're still like I want to say you're A+ at least. I feel like you're still probably at least up in this bracket range, just due to your durability mostly than anything else. You're just the hardest thing to kill And I think that does warrant putting you this high up. But the damage output in the burst is obviously much less. Like these guys do way more as far as burst damage. Subtlety Rogue, I don't think this is too unobvious, but Subtlety Rogue is still going to be at the top. Just insane, crazy damage. Lots of stun lockdown on this 16-second DR, and really tanky too on top of that. So you're the whole shebang. I'd honestly, if they do end up going after Subtlety Rogue, I'd rather they target their defense, let them be crazy stuns with lots of damage, but they got to be careful where they're going. They can't be too reckless. Survival Hunter, I haven't seen, honestly, Survival Hunter doing too insane. I think like probably A tier is probably a safer spot. I think it's not awful, but I don't. The takedown change is nice, where your pet will actually be able to get her roots with it at least, but I don't really see it moving too much, unfortunately. Unholy DK, I think is A plus at least. Still a really good pick. I think it struggles with like Windwalkers and Fury Warriors particularly. But it might honestly feel even better since Devour Demon Hunter is probably, or Devour Demon Hunter and Ellie Shaman, more casters. That's not where Unholy DK really kind of thrives. So you might actually be enjoying that. You're probably happy about Arms losing a lot of its momentum. Vengeance, I don't see any of it really. I imagine its mobility is still carrying it, but I really don't see a lot of it. So I'll put it on B tier for now. And then Windwalker Monk, I think is also at least A plus, if not maybe S tier. But I'll put it on A plus for now. Just a really good melee, lots of damage. I think uptime can be an issue for it relative to these guys. They have a pretty easy time getting to their target. But it's still really good. It's still a really good pick. It's really strong. This is again a prediction moving into this on where these specializations are going to land. I could easily see like Ellie wiggling up into S tier possibly. I could see Affliction wiggling into A tier possibly. Destruction maybe, a little bit of wiggle room. What I really like about it though is that it's very hard to lock in. Honestly, other than these guys at the top, I feel like you can lock in pretty clearly with these guys being really good. But other than that, I feel like the meta is expanding, which is nice. That's what we need, is like constant change. Don't let people get locked into despair of feeling like, oh, my spec's just bad now for months and I can't do anything, guys. That would be the worst thing for the momentum of the expansion and the retention of the players. But those are my thoughts. Just wanted to update you guys, give you a quick little relay. And I will see you guys in the next video. So thank you guys very much for watching, and peace.